Dear friends, my name is Nausheen Nizami, and in today's session we are going to start chapter 7, which is on general equilibrium and partial equilibrium. And in today's session we are going to focus our discussion around a very important economics tool which is known as Edgeworth box. So Edgeworth box is named after a renowned economist, Francis Sidro Edgeworth, and this tool basically helps in explaining, in understanding the situations of general equilibrium and partial equilibrium using diagrams. So let us try to understand how Edgeworth box works and what it represents. Before that, in this slide you can see there are two graphs. Both these graphs are representing indifference curve maps of two individuals. So supposingly the first graph is representing the indifference curve map for Mr. R, and the second graph is representing the indifference curve map for Mr. S. There are two goods X and Y in both the diagrams which the consumers have to choose from. All the indifference curves are convex to origin as per the properties of indifference curves, and also consumers try to maximize utility, so higher indifference curves are preferred. Another important property that you need to recall is that the slope of indifference curve is given by marginal rate of substitution. So it shows the rate at which a consumer is willing to substitute one good for another. So the indifference curve map for Mr. R shows three indifference curves R1, R2, R3, and the indifference curve map for Mr. S also shows three indifference curves S1, S2, S3. So basically this entire story is of consumers. We are right now discussing consumer theory, and we are trying to understand how these situations can be depicted in one diagram alone. So let me take you to the diagram of Edgeworth box and let me introduce you to the concept. So in this Edgeworth box, you can see the situation of both individuals R and S simultaneously. How do you understand this? For that you need to look at the bottom left corner. This is when you look at the diagram from the bottom left corner, you will see the indifference curve maps of R, Mr. R, and when you look at the diagram from top right corner, you will see the indifference curve map of Mr. S. So all the indifference curves R1, R2, R3 which were there in the previous diagram have been represented in this Edgeworth box, inside the Edgeworth box. So Edgeworth box is this rectangular portion, and all the indifference curves of Mr. S are also plotted, but as it has to be interpreted from top right corner, that's why they are looking concave. However, in reality you have to interpret it from the top right corner, so that they would remain convex to origin. Now what are the properties of indifference curves and when they are drawn together? So you can see that inside this Edgeworth box, these indifference curves are actually merging or are tangent at some points. So these points of tangency have to be noted. That is number one. The second thing which you need to look and focus your attention to is that both the consumers, Mr. R and Mr. S, are choosing between X and Y commodities. So when you look from the bottom left corner, you see X and Y, and when you look from the top right corner also, you see X and Y. So both the consumers are still choosing between the same two commodities X and Y, and you might be wondering why this diagram has been drawn and why the situations of two individuals are being shown in the same diagram. So basically this concept of Edgeworth box is used to understand the exchange process between two individuals, and what would be the actual outcome depends on their negotiations. So if two consumers whose benefits or utility are interdependent, they would like to trade with each other, we can understand which points inside the Edgeworth box are advantageous for both of them and which points are not. So let's try to understand this situation further. Let me take you to the next diagram, which is obtained by joining the points of tangency of the indifference curves of Mr. R and S. So when you join these points of tangency, what you need to recall is that it also indicates that the slopes of indifference curves of both these consumers, both these individuals are equal. So at all the points of tangency, the slopes are equal. That is one property that you should remember. And the second property is that these points are also Pareto optimal. So what is the meaning of Pareto optimality? So Pareto optimality was a term given by Vilfredo Pareto, an Italian economist, and this term basically implies that you cannot improve the situation of one person without worsening the situation of the other person. So basically there is no scope of advantageous trade if someone is at these points of tangency. So that's why these points are known as Pareto optimal points. Once both the consumers have reached any of these points, it is no more advantageous to trade further. However, if they are off these points, it may be still advisable or advantageous for the consumers to continue trading. So this curve, this red curve that you see, which has joined the tangency points, is known as contract curve, and it basically helps in understanding the decision making of the two consumers. An important point that I would like to share with you is that Edgeworth box can be used for economic agents of any type. So right now we were discussing the case of consumers. However, we can also discuss the case of two producers. We can also see the case of two countries, two governments, two firms. So when you want to understand the decision making of two economic agents, this diagram is appropriate. I'll be back with you to make you understand and to discuss some more concepts relating to general equilibrium and partial equilibrium with the help of Edgeworth box. Till then, all of you take care and have a great time. Thank you for your patient listening. Thank you.